Hello everybody, my name is Christian Fernandez. Some of you guys know me as Chris Williams. It's a stage name I'm going to be using as I do my performances. This is a chance for me to sort of share with you people some of my thoughts and feelings about the entertainment that I have chosen. Sort of like the style that I have been singing for actually many years, ever since I was really young. And let's go ahead and get on with the interview.
Hello, Mr. Williams.
Hello.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you.
I just want to ask you some questions. First of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thanks.
Okay. Well, if we're already here, let's get started. Can you hear me okay?
I'm doing fine.
Okay. So the first question I want to ask you is, what is it about jazz or standards? I guess that genre style of music that you like so much.
Well, see, jazz and standard for me was a very interesting time because actually it started forming out of like the Depression. If I know my history correctly, it's like right around the 20s. Things were like, the economy was booming, like right before the crash and everything. So that's when that stuff, for me, people have worked really hard for so long to get to that point, I think. And then as they reached a certain point of like prosperity or whatever, they got, how do I say it? They sort of loosened up a little bit, And for me, I think people were able to sort of relax and sing their hearts out. I feel like people had more feeling back then. There was more life. There was more energy. There was more freedom. There was a sense of camaraderie. There was a sense of self-expression. People who really wanted to be their real true selves and say things that they really wanted to the world. And people really voiced their opinion. There wasn't a lot of censorship. I think that people were just more open and free, like me. I feel like my personality resonates more with that style because it's just the sort of person that I am. So, to answer it more specifically, I guess you'd say that jazz and standards, to me, opens you up more. Rock and roll is cool, rap is cool, even country, I like some country. But to me, I feel like those styles are not as open and free. There's certain things that you can do, I think, with those styles that can be done with jazz or standards. So, and to kind of tie it in more to like time, I think that during the 50s, after the crash and things got real bad and they kind of picked them, America kind of picked the pieces back up and kind of pulled itself back together, started feeling that prosperity again. I feel like it just kind of came back even stronger. And like Sinatra in that time, it was a time of really truly expressing yourself to the fullest. Saying what you want to say to the world without censorship, without worrying about, consequences. It was just definitely a more free time. I feel like nowadays people aren't as free or as happy as they used to be. There may be certain things that create a sense of self-consciousness on the world. People have nowadays I feel like people just censor themselves way too much. I feel like people say things that don't really mean or vice versa. I don't want to express themselves as freely. Artists too. I don't feel like any singers or actors, they're no exception. They might have ways of like holding back. People like Sinatra and Dean Martin, those kind of gentlemen, were more open. They said what they wanted, whatever came to their mind, and weren't afraid to really truly be themselves. And like I said, not as self-conscious, not as self-aware, just more happy and free. And that's something that's also something that I've always resonated with since I can remember. So I think it has a lot to do with the time and the people and the mentality that I relate with more than anything.
Okay. So it's not just the music itself, then it's the people as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's not just about the music was part of it. That was just one aspect of it. But it was also the time. The cars we drove, the clothes we wore, the way we spoke. Like, hey, how you doing, that Johnny? It just seemed to be more happy and free back then. Definitely more expressive, and people had more character, more personality, more life. Larger than life. A lot of larger than life people were around back then. The movie studios, the films that were coming out back then. Like Gone with the Wind and like these great. I mean, even going as far back as like silent movies before they had, movies with music and sound in them. Even like the expressions they made, like the faces they made. It was just very expressive. It was very happy. And I feel like nowadays the entertainment industry has got dulled down to like a level of just complete, just like taking it in, downloading it, just getting the heck out of the theater. That's what I feel is happening nowadays. Even if people don't even go into the theaters anymore. I know most of the time people will watch a film or music video on their phone or their their computer or something or a tablet or whatnot, but you can't fully experience the film like that. Like even me, And I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if you noticed, but this wall is white behind me. This is actually a home theater that I use, and I project the image on the wall that I'm in front of right now because I just like to enjoy it to its fullest. And everything back then was larger than life. The people, the music, the cars were big and they were massive and they had life and personality. You drove a big giant vehicle to work, and buses. If you rode a bus, if you rode a train, it was like I don't know. I just feel like people just really enjoyed their life more back then, and I feel like people were able to fully express themselves because there wasn't a phone or a computer to sort of capture it at the time, so you weren't so self-conscious about your image. You weren't so self-conscious about how you appear to other people, especially with social media. Because if you're on Facebook and you don't like your picture, oh, I look fat in that, or I don't look good in that, you're immediately going to take it off because you're thinking of you're becoming self-conscious and self-aware, and you're thinking, most of the time when you become self-conscious, you think poorly and ill of yourself. You don't tend to really think like good thoughts. You tend to think like, you tend to think you're gonna gear towards like a negative, like sort of like, oh, I don't like the way that sounds or something. So it usually isn't a positive thing when you start becoming self-conscious and self-aware, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but from my experience, it's not a very healthy thing to do. So I think that time, jazz standards in the 50s and Sinatra when he was in his prime was definitely a more human experience and more prosperous and definitely more animated and definitely more energetic and definitely more full of life, way more full of life, because I've always felt that I was larger than life. Almost too much if you can. In my opinion, it's better to have too much than not enough, and definitely don't want to hold back. So.
I understand. I get what you're saying. It was they enjoyed it more. We get to ride a bus today. We get to go to the movies today.
I believe so. Yeah.
We get to do this.
I believe it was,
now we have to do this.
Yeah.
Look at what we get to do today.
Yeah, I believe it was more about an opportunity, seeing everything as an opportunity or a chance or something that they wanted to look forward to. Not like a chore. I feel like nowadays everyone's completely just motivated by obligation. I have to go to work. I have to use this phone. Mostly with the technology, because the technology, I think, adds a sense of obligation that's not necessary. You don't have to sing. I like to sing. I enjoy singing. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy entertaining. I like it. I actually can't wait to do my next show, which is coming up in June. And I'm actually preparing for it, and I start thinking of ideas, and that gets me excited. It gets me all jazzed up in a way, because for me, I don't feel like I can never do anything out of obligation. I can never do anything out of like having to do something like a chore or it's work. I enjoy my job, what I do for a living. But if I could slowly shift that to actually doing this for a living, I'd jump on the opportunity. But I know that everything's a process. I know that everything takes time. So, but yeah, I never want to feel like I actually have to do anything. If I do it, because I want to do it, because I desire to do it, kind of like a feeling that I feel deep in my soul. I want to do it. I can't wait to do it. That's what it is.
Thank you.
No problem.
What is it? So I guess what is it about just the music itself? This may be a silly question, but if you take out the people or the time, would you still feel as passionate about the music itself, standards and jazz? Just the music?
You mean without the
without the whole schmeal or whatever, the whole thing that goes along with that time, or just the music itself. For instance, jazz today or whatever.
I think
for
so,
example,
because
just the music itself.
It's funny you ask that question. I think so because it's perfect you're asking that, because I think that, like, I'll listen to it now, right? Like, I'll listen to Sinatra now during this time, and it stands out it actually stands out more. Because maybe back then it was more diluted because there was so much other things going on that it was able to distract you from how awesome it was. But to me, I feel like it sounds even more, like, it makes more of an impact now because there's nothing to compare it to. Because no one is singing that style nowadays. I don't hear it on the radio, and I don't hear people often playing it in their cars. So I know that it's even more rare now, which makes it even more special. Because I feel like things that are more rare, like when you're looking for like gold or something, and you've got to sift through all this crap, and you finally found that little gem. That's why they have the expression "diamond in the rough," because it's such a rare thing. You find out surrounded by all this crap. Because if I can speak freely and bluntly, I think the music today is crap. I think it's terrible. I think mostly entertainment in general that's coming out nowadays is crap. I don't agree with that anyway. Back then, you had this, everything was awesome. You had this awesome Sinatra song and this awesome film coming out. I'm driving this awesome car going to this awesome job. It's like, it's all awesome. You have nothing to compare it to, because it's like, how can you possibly pick one out that's better than the other? You can't, but nowadays it's freaking the easiest thing in the world. That's an awesome song, surrounded by crap. It's very simple. It's because you're able to see it more, you can hear it more clearly. I can anyway, especially if you're already in tune with it. If you're already the kind of guy that likes that kind of music and style, I know that I'm not the only person who likes that kind of stuff. I know it tends to be older people I mean, I know that I've always resonated with stuff that has to do with older time anyway. Even when I was like a teenager, I remember I used to just love that music more than anything. I didn't even like the style of music that was coming up because I grew up in the 90s when, you know, it was like garage bands and rock and roll and Nirvana, and it was cool, but I never got into it as much as anybody else did. I was always listening to Sinatra or Dean Martin or anything. And even watching older shows, like I used to watch The Honeymooners and not so much I Love Lucy, but I used to watch a lot of older Sinatra movies and stuff, and I just immediately knew that that was the time that I belonged in. It's funny, I've actually spoken about reincarnation with some people and how they believe in past lives and how you may have lived during a different time, and I fully believe that I probably had a life that I lived back during then, because I feel like it makes too much sense to me not to. How can it feel so right if I didn't actually do it at one point? So it's like not possible. I can't believe that this is it. This is the only time I could have lived in. So that, I'm not even sure if I'm actually answering your question, Craig. I'm not even sure that I'm trying to like stay on topic. I might be going a bunch of different roads.
Just say what's on your mind.
I'm trying to like stay on topic, but I think that it's hard for me to do that because I'm so passionate about it. It's hard for me
Say what you feel.
Plus, I know it's talk real fast, I get excited, but I think that the question was about like if you took it out, yeah. So if you
just the music itself.
the music itself definitely stands out more now. So to answer your question, no, I don't think. I think that nowadays, yes, the music would make more of an impact now than it did back then. Absolutely.
So you enjoy everything about it.
Yeah, the music more so because I don't make cars for a living. I do want to do film. But the music and film, the entertainment industry specifically, maybe not so much the business aspect of it, because I don't know so much about what was going on with the world, like, you know, as far as politics or business during the 50s. But the entertainment industry, which is what I'm interested in, absolutely. I think that it was more, it just had more life back then. And trying to tie it into now, to today's time with the music and film that's coming out now, I mean, if we don't do something soon, man, it's like, we're headed towards a road that I don't really want to go down. That's why I'm trying my very best to try to like steer it in the right direction, because it's definitely not going there now. And I don't think anybody saw that coming, especially like, you know, with like the things that happened the past few years, like with COVID and things like that just sort of like just has us going down this wrong road. Entertainment, I'm speaking directly about entertainment specifically because that's the industry that I'm involved in. So I think that it needs to be definitely revamped and rethought out and rechanged and just sort of like have a complete makeover. Because if we don't get back to that soon, I mean, we're headed for disaster. It's going to be very bad. But like I said, that takes time. It's a process. It took time and a process for it to grow, and it happened quick. It fell apart quickly. It wasn't a long process to like make it fall apart, but that was quick. Well, it should have been that quick, but it was kind of like came up, and just totally collapsed. And now it's going to take just as much to rebuild it. Because I always feel like it takes a long time. It takes longer for something to build than it is for it to collapse. Way longer. Because it's just a process. Like Rome wasn't built in one day. The Egyptian pyramids, any empire has to be built up one slow brick at a time, and this is no different. So you can have that era, you can have that mentality now. You can think that way now. You can think like a jazz kind of like a laid back Rat Pack kind of guy now, and be just fine. You know, if we can incorporate technology with the advances we have with with 4K and these new digital devices and no longer using film and these editing processes, should speed up the process that much more. So I agree that there's been improvements, but I feel like the art has failed. I feel like the style of writing and the style of music and the style of basically the material. The technology has been completely, the advances in technology have been amazing. The way we do, the cameras nowadays, I mean, we just did our last show in 4K. It looked amazing, looks incredible. So it's got an amazing look. But I have to bring something else to the table. We can't just, if you film crap with 4K, it's still gonna look like crap. Just like very high resolution crap. So it's not gonna be like you're gonna make the crap look better with a better camera. So I have to make sure that I'm bringing good material to and vice versa. If you have great, awesome material with a crappy camera, it's still gonna look like crap. So you have to have both. It's a coordination, it's a combination of, the equipment being used and the material being filmed. They both have to be in sync and just as equally matched in quality and perfection. Because if you're only doing, if one of those is lacking somewhere, it's gonna come off in the it's gonna show. Because people can tell, you know what I'm saying? That's why a lot of times these films that are coming out have amazing quality filming technology, like look, but the story's terrible, or the acting's no good. It's just, it has to be both. So I'm doing my best to make sure that I am making sure those two are completely equal. So, so everything's, being enjoyed to the max, to its full potential. Because I cannot stand seeing things. I just don't like seeing things. I don't like seeing slack. I don't like seeing things that are just like that are lacking. or that are not fully that are not fully like he's making me laugh. Things that are not fully things that are not reaching their full potential. To me, that breaks my heart. To see something that's mediocre, that could be amazing, like a piece, like right here, like a musical piece, and it's like, oh, if it just had this, if it just had that, it would be that much better. It's a great piece, but it could be an amazing piece. You know, that's the difference between something being good and being great, or being amazing, or being. There's always levels. It's always about levels and plateaus, and like you always want to reach the highest of highs. You know, the guy that climbed Mount Everest was trying to get to that peak. I'm sure that Everest has several peaks as you get to the top, but there's no better than being on the top of the top, to where like you literally can't climb any further. There's no more mountain to be climbed. When you're at the very top of the mountain and looking over everything. He could have stopped somewhere in the middle. He could have stopped, I'm sure, like I said. But I'm sure that when you realize, oh, there's more mountain up there, we can climb some more. Why not? Why the hell not? Until you literally cannot climb anymore. When you're reaching, there's nothing but air, and you can see everything off the bottom. That's when you're the point you want to reach to in any aspect of your career, any aspect of your life. I don't care what it is you do for a living. If you collect garbage, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, whatever you do for a living. Me, for example, an entertainer, I want to make sure that it's the highest of highs, the best quality possible. Because if there's if there's a little bit more that can be reached, I'm going to reach it. And anybody else should too. So that was a very extensive answer to that question, but I don't see why.
Thank you. That was perfect.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on. Second question I have for you, or wherever we're at, is if Sinatra came here in a time machine, what do you think he would say about today's entertainment? That's the first specific question.
I know. That one I wanted to make sure I got asked. I think, it's probably going to take an answer. I should have probably thought of an answer before I had you ask me. I think that he would say that, well, I think he'd be upset. I think he'd be disappointed, I do. Because a guy like that, not just Sinatra, but let's take a guy like Jackie Gleason, or Sinatra, or anybody who's like, like a big performer, larger than life kind of people. The world now, I think because of technology, and phones especially, puts your life in a box, put your head in a box, the way you think. So I think your mentality is a lot different than it was back then, and it probably couldn't survive. He'd probably find the nearest building to jump off, because I think that he couldn't take it. A guy like Gleason, Sinatra, Dean Martin, these performers, these great men, or even some of these producers, or some of these great actors like Orson Welles or Marlon Brando, some of these larger-than-life guys. Brando was in Guys and Dolls with Sinatra, same, no different. That's why those men couldn't live past like the 90s, because once we got into like this technological era, and we moved into like the computer age, and cell phones were coming out like in the early 2000s. I'm telling you, man, they checked out right at the right time, because there's no way that they would survive because of the way that people think nowadays. I mean, you send a text message like this, it's like your mind is already being put in this small sort of vice, and they just couldn't survive. I know they couldn't. Sinatra could never send a text message. He just looked at the phone like, what the heck is this? He couldn't even do it because he wasn't authentic. No, exactly. No authenticity either. Because technology, I feel, and social media has sucked out the authenticity of a lot of people and things, and the way that they talk to themselves. The language is different. The way we express ourselves, the way we talk to each other, it's a whole different monster now. So I don't think they'd be able to survive. I think that Sinatra would be very disappointed, a little depressed, couldn't say the same things, couldn't have the same sort of like energy or flow. Definitely not as laid back either. I mean, we're moving in a time now when things are just moving so fast paced, you can't even stop and think anymore. You can't even stop and have like a thought, like a real human being, or say anything that you really want to feel or express yourself really. So I think it'd be very tough for him. I think the reason I wanted you to ask me that question was because I feel like Sinatra sometimes. I had a place. I feel like sometimes I've been with Sinatra. It feels like I've been with Sinatra. You do realize he's a man. I feel like I am him reincarnated because I feel so freaking out of place myself. It's like I can't even I struggle sometimes today with just living in today's time.
So the answer to the question then is however you would feel, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. He would feel just like me.
Answered your own question.
Yeah, he would feel just like me. Just totally out of place, doesn't belong here, wrong, and he'd look around confused all the time, like, what is this? I'm not just Sinatra though. I use Sinatra as the main example because that's the music that I'm singing, but Jackie Gleason, Marlon Brando, I like those, I like using them as examples too because those are very larger than life, very authentic men. Men of caliber, men of quality, men of standards. Not just standards in songs, like standards as in like the way they carry themselves. So yeah, perhaps they would make it. I doubt it, but basically the way I feel, they would feel out of place.
Alright.
To sum up.
Alright. moving on. How has the music and style from that time changed over the years?
Definitely has gone in a very interesting direction. I feel like I said, not as expressive, not as happy, not as free. A lot of whininess. I remember growing up in the 90s and hearing like some of this rock and roll music, and I was like, I just couldn't stand it. It was just way too whiny and like way too much like, oh, poor me. It's like these garage bands. I don't want to say like these little boys, but these kind of like these whiny little boys. Like, don't get me wrong, I love some of these bands. Like let's use like Green. Let's use Green Day as an example. Green Day as an example. They'll have some great hits, but the first early stuff they were coming out with, these garage bands, was just like, do you have the time to listen to me whine? Whine is one of the words that they use for literally whine. And for God's sake, I mean, it's like, why are they whining? Sinatra never whined. He crooned, you know? It was just like, you know, and it's witchcraft. It was like, there was a sense of like bravado. There was a sense of like, I'm the man. I know what I'm doing. I got this, you know? I mean, he stuck his chest out and he sang. It was like there was no hindrances, I guess the word is. I mean, the music nowadays and the style. I mean, it was right around the time when he died, because I think Sinatra died in like 97 or something, so right around the time when he died, man, I feel like he just went in a really bad direction. And that's probably what made him die faster, because he was probably hearing some of that music, because he was alive when some of that music was coming out, and I'm sure he was just like, yeah, I gotta get out of here, this isn't gonna work, you know what I'm saying? Because when you're a loose, kind of free kind of guy like that, and you start hearing stuff like that, you probably start getting a little depressed. Everybody's like, yeah, this style's changing, you know, like rock and roll changed. Like even Elvis Presley, that's another good example. Elvis Presley never really whined. He was always like about like Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Michael Jackson. They never really whined. They never really like, they were always strutting their stuff. Those artists were always like owning their craft and perfecting it and extremely authentic. But most of those artists started to go out of style right around when I was growing up. Especially Sinatra. His time was way over before I was even born. So, but he had a flair, he had a fire, he had an energy that I definitely resonate with more than anything else. And the style, I'm trying to get back to the question how it's changed. It's changed in the sense of that it's no longer as lively or as free as it was. A lot of times music nowadays is definitely put in a box, in a vice, and you can't fully express yourself to the fullest. You can't say whatever you want to say. The funny thing is, a lot of those songs that were written for Sinatra were not written by him. Those are standards that were written by like not Neil Simon, he was a playwright. Cole Porter, I can't forget some of the other guys that wrote those songs. Nelson Riddle, I believe he wrote, I'll have to do my research, but I believe he wrote Kick Out of You or something like that, I Get a Kick Out of You. So these artists were chosen for those songs. So they would write the song first, and then they would find the artist. Now, I guess that was more common nowadays back then, but nowadays you're on your own, you have to write your own style, you have to do it all for yourself. So maybe there's more a sense of independence nowadays, but not as much freedom. They have taken away the freedom. It just happened to work so perfectly back then, where it was the song that was written, I got an artist for it, right there, Sinatra. He would sound great sounding that thing. He would sound great singing that song. So I've always thought that way. I've always thought of, I have this product, I have this thing that I want to do. If I can't do it, who can? Now, I just happen to be able to sing Sinatra, but if I could find someone that could sing it for me and I would capture it, put on the whole production, I would definitely do that in a heartbeat. Because I consider myself more of someone, I guess behind the scenes, someone who would like to see a production be as amazing as possible, which is hard to do. If you ask any actor who's actually directed and starred and produced their own film, it's tough. Because you have to be involved in every single aspect, so it's really hard to focus on any one particular part of it to its full potential. Because you have to divert your attention to so many different things, so because you're so distracted by other stuff, it's kind of hard to be focused on that one thing. But all Sinatra ever worried about was singing. He would just sing the tune, make sure it was perfect. I don't think he wrote these songs, I don't think he ever wrote these songs, but that's why we had that kind of thing, because Nelson Riddle couldn't sing, Sinatra could. So it was just about the camaraderie and the teamwork and the sort of collaboration that took place back then, which I don't feel like is going on as much nowadays. I feel like technology has severed people off, and social media and phones have sort of created a sense of yes, independence, which I am fully supportive of, or I believe in, but the only thing that's missing now, I think, is the connection and the sense of teamwork and how we're going to work together. Because if you're in your own little world, playing on a phone or a tablet or computer or something, it's like you tend to not look around and see who's really in your life and who can help you. If you stop and look around and pay attention to your environment, and just look up from the phone for a second and see who's like actually got your back, who's on your side, and who actually can pay attention to you more than you can yourself. Because maybe Sinatra didn't even know what songs would sound good for him. You know, what should I sing? I've got this great voice. I've got this great bravado, sort of baritone voice. I need a song to sing. You know what I'm saying? I don't have any material. I gotta have something to say. I don't have any songs in my head. No, so Riddle comes along and says, I got a song ready for you, baby, here's how it goes. Bam, plays it, done. And then they're working together as a team, and they're playing off their strengths. But if Sinatra had been on the phone the entire time saying, yeah, I can't listen, I'm texting right now. How can he possibly, how can he possibly have listened to anything and heard anything that's going on around him? So if we just stop and pay attention, look around every now and then, it's okay to have a phone. I'm not against phones, I'm not against computers, I'm not even against social media. I think it's a moderation thing that we're missing. I think it's a sense of appropriateness and what should be done when it should be done. Not just always pick up the phone, just always be addicted to it, glued to it, so to speak. It's okay to put the phone down, it's okay to turn the TV off, go for a walk, appreciate nature. If you're a creative person like me, nature resonates with you and you understand the natural order of things and you like to look at trees and things and you sort of appreciate time alone and solitude more than most, I think, because I think artists and creative people have an inner voice that they want to listen to more than others. Don't necessarily need external stimulus all the time to sort of entertain them, plus it comes from inside. But even people who aren't creative or want to create anything, I still think it's not as healthy to be on the phone as often as they are. Just to appreciate things in your natural environment is probably better than just being on the phone or computer 24/7. I know I keep going towards phones all the time, which is that topic, but I think
use it as a resource.
Yeah.
You don't become a victim to it.
Exactly. I mean, they had phones back then. They just didn't have cell phones. They did communicate back then, but it was quicker. It was more about getting information back. Hey Nelson, what are we gonna do next? Bam, bam, bam.
Everyone was on the same page. It seems like.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
I think now technology is about creating separation and more like just sort of individual person, like me kind of thinking, which is maybe not the greatest way of communicating or the greatest way of creating something, I think. I mean, depends on the person, but me personally, it doesn't work for me. But I think the music has been affected by that, because I think that people will, for God's sake, I think people write songs on their phones now too. I mean, I think they just write those lyrics on their phones. I don't know how they do it. I don't know people's style or process, but I don't write music on a phone. I write it on the computer or I write it out. I may save information on the phone, like I might text myself something so I don't forget. So like I said, it's all about how to use it, not just being totally glued to it. I feel like the entertainment industry in general has changed because of technology. From trying to stay on the question, because even the film industry has changed. Because some movies nowadays, they'll have an entire scene where someone's just texting someone back and forth, and I've seen on some of these TV shows where they'll show someone texting, and then they'll actually show what they're texting in the corner or something like that, and they'll just they'll have an entire texting scene or something. It's just weird. Like, why would I watch something that I can do in real life? Why am I paying you to show me something that I can just watch myself in the mirror doing? It's like, I never understood that. Back then, the entertainment was about a world that we'd never seen before. Movies that came out back then, like Wizard of Oz, or Gone with the Wind, or these great movies that, Citizen Kane. These are about things that we just personally can never experience in real life. So why the heck would I mean, of course I'm going to pay for that. Of course I'm going to go to the theater. I'm going to flock to the theater to see something that I've never seen. The circus back then. I used to have the circus back then. Go see the strongest man in the world, the elephants, the clowns. You're going to see something that's larger than life, bigger than you, that you've never seen before, that you can't possibly see just driving down the street, glancing over. You don't see an elephant across the road when you're at the stoplight. You know what I'm saying? You never see that kind of stuff. So it's about a different world, basically. And I feel like now the world has just become too unified because of technology and social media. They don't know where to separate it, They don't know how to separate it. Because now it's more personal separation, not just separation between you and the art itself. It's more personal separation between you and the individual. So we should be together on the same page about something, but not everything. And the style of entertainment has definitely taken in my opinion, a wrong turn, a really weird, vicious turn, where we're not being as open-minded, I guess, or free. They were more open-minded back then. They had more of an open mind. They thought more free-spirited. They thought more outside the box, And it was just a better time, in my opinion. So it's definitely changed. In my opinion, it might be in a negative way. And like I said, I hope one day we can steer back to something that's a little more positive and sort of resonates with something more upbeat, I guess you'd say. It's kind of like a downer nowadays. Nowadays, sort of just things kind of sluggish, kind of slow. You figure technology would speed things up, but they do, but in a mental way. because technology will enhance your brain and overstimulate your mind and make you think too much. And when you think too much, you're not really happy and free.